Morning everybody, welcome to the Monday Recharge. I hope you've all had a fantastic weekend. I had a very busy week last week. My 4-year-old had a birthday and my 1-year-old had a birthday. So I was doing my real job last week, being a busy mom. So this week I really wanted to talk to you about authenticity. So this is something that my clients talk to me a lot about, and I think authentic and being an authentic leader, it's kind of become one of those buzzwords, a bit like strategic. Everybody wants to be it, but I really want to talk about what does it actually really mean to be authentic, and why do we need to be. So hopefully we can give you some tips today and on how to be authentic in the workplace. So ask yourself the question, do you hide who you really are in the workplace, or do you show everything? And if you do hide who you are, you're certainly not alone. Over 61% of people usually say that they're not the real them in the workplace. And I suppose the question is why? What are we scared of? And why does it cause a problem? And the reason it causes a problem is because it takes so much energy to not be you. So if you're having to use all of that energy just to change your behaviors, then you can really start to cause burnout and stress and issues, and it can actually be quite problematic. So from what I've seen over the years, I think a lot of people aren't authentic at work or in the workplace. And a lot of the time it's because we're not really happy in the workplace. A lot of the time we're not really doing roles that we enjoy. We're not following our passions and our dreams. We may have fallen into something and we stick with it and it's earning us good money, or it's not easy to move somewhere else, and we kind of get stuck in that rut. To be really authentic in the workplace and in your career, I think it's actually quite a big piece of sort of self-exploration to say, what am I actually passionate about? What is going to make me happy? What am I going to enjoy doing in the workplace? What can I offer? So I think that kind of authenticity is actually quite difficult when you're thinking about your career in the first place. I think that's how a lot of us get stuck in a rut. Did you know we spend 90,000 hours on average at work? It's a lot of time to not be happy or not be being ourselves. So I really think that's something that we need to think about sort of from a broader perspective in our careers. And especially if you've got younger people starting out in careers, it's really important to think about those things that make you happy. Because if you get into a role that makes you happy and you get to live out your passions and your dreams, you're going to have so much more to offer the world, and you will be totally authentic in the workplace. And I suppose the big answer to the question, why do we need to be authentic in the workplace, is because if you're not authentic, people don't trust you. And if people don't trust you, it's really difficult to get on in the workplace, because the workplace, and not just the workplace, look, let's be honest, outside of the workplace as well, is all about building long-term relationships with people. It's really difficult to do that if you don't trust. And a lot of the time, the reason we don't trust is because we're not really believing what we're seeing or what we're hearing. So I learned something a long time ago called Sight, Sound, Sync. And it was quite a useful tool. I actually started using it when I was presenting at conferences, because I wanted to make sure that what I was saying was coming across as authentic. So what I did is I used to record myself, record my presentation, and I would watch it back without the sound and just literally watch what I was doing. The way I was flapping my arms around, which I usually do a lot of when I'm speaking. I do sometimes look like I'm about to take off, so that was a real note to myself. But I sort of watched my body language, I watched where I was looking, how much movement, how much walking I was doing, and made some notes. And then I watched it back again, but this time I just had the sound on and I actually turned around so I couldn't see myself. And I just listened to the words that I was saying. And what I was trying to do was to think, is what I'm saying, does it look like this is what I really mean? So I suppose I'm trying to synchronize that sight and sound. And that was a really big learning curve for me, and it really helped me with my presentations. It's quite funny actually, and I've talked about this in presentations since. And people always say to me after a presentation, you know, you're so passionate about what you do and it's great to hear X, Y, Z. A lot of the time, I think it's not always the content. It is because I'm talking about something that I'm passionate about. People believe in it and people trust that, you know, you're being real with them. And I think once you can do that, you break down those trust barriers, and that's where you start to really get that authenticity. So for me, authenticity really begins with self-awareness, as does everything that I believe in. And this is where I use the predictive index tool all of the time, because I think it's so good to start understanding your values, start understanding your emotions and your emotional triggers, start understanding how you're perceived by others. Because until you really start thinking about your true self and how others are seeing that, how can you possibly be authentic? I think as a leader in the workplace, the number one thing to think about really is being authentic, because you are a role model for your team. So if you can really express yourself and speak clearly and speak really honestly, you're going to role model that to your team and then allow that safety where people can do the same. And this is where I think being authentic has the real key, because I think authenticity is all about vulnerability. It's all about not being scared to be who you are. And let's be honest, sometimes when we look at ourselves, we don't like what we see, hence we don't show the world. But that's who makes us who we are. You know, we have to go through mistakes, we have to go through, you know, conflict, we have to go through so many issues and so many, you know, problems to get stronger, to improve, to, you know, be able to be the expert in our field. Nobody, you know, got up one day and went, I'm going to be the best leader in the world. You have to learn, you have to understand how to get there. And the best way to get there is to be vulnerable and make mistakes. So if we can show that when we're in a leadership role, it really is going to help us. And it's really going to help us with our team and help them to believe that they can be authentic. And that's when you start to get real value, because when people are real with you, you start to get those little unique, you know, quirky isms that people have that you can start going, wow, I can use that in this project, or that's what we need to build this long-term relationship, or that's what this client will love. So this is where I think you can be really effective if you start really starting to understand that authenticity is really about being quite vulnerable and being quite honest with yourself as well as others. And on that front of being vulnerable, I'm starting to think that it's actually really important to talk about things. And that's half of our problem. We don't want to talk about things. We don't want to appear to be weak. And we've got to start realising that vulnerability is certainly not about weakness. Senior female leader who had just gone back into the workplace after her second child. She's had 6 years out of the workplace and she'd really lost her confidence. And, you know, she really talked about how she didn't want to appear to have, you know, lost this confidence, or she doesn't want people to think that she's failing. And it's really important to her that she can show that she's got it all together and that she can juggle the family. And I kind of looked at her and I thought, this is a problem. This is a real problem, that we have this expectation that we have to show people that, you know, we've got everything together and we're okay and we can take on the world and we know all the answers. Let's be honest, we don't. If I'm honest, when I came back to work after all of my children, actually, the first, second and the third, I didn't have 12 months off, and I didn't, you know, spend lots of time at home. I went back to work, I think, after 3 months, after 5 months, and after about 4 months. That was actually my choice. The reason I did that was, yes, okay, I was running my own business, so it was important, but also because I really felt like I'd lost my identity when I became a mum. I felt like I was failing. I didn't know what I was doing. And I kind of just thought, oh my gosh, is this who I am? I don't know who I am anymore. Kind of lost my identity a bit. And I found that going back to work, even part-time, I actually became a better mum. But people don't talk about that. And we don't talk about, people always say to me, oh, Adele, you do the juggle struggle so well, you've got everything together and you're so well organized. I'm completely not. I have lots of days when things just do not happen, when things fall over, when I have a sick child, or I was supposed to be flying to Brisbane to do 6 meetings and now I'm having to do 3 of them on Skype and the rest of them tomorrow and some next week. Sometimes it doesn't work. We don't talk about that, and we should, because we shouldn't have this expectation that we all know what we're doing and we're all okay and everything's fantastic. Why are we putting on a show? Authenticity is about being vulnerable and about being honest. Let's be honest and say it's really bloody difficult, and we do all struggle and it's okay. I'm not sure why we've put up this perception, especially us females. We do put up this perception of everything is great. It's not real. Let's start getting real about this stuff. Let's talk about it, because if we talk about it, we kind of make it okay for other people. I've had 3 children now, but I would hate to think that, one of my friends or one of my team or one of my colleagues was coming back to work after their first child, feeling and struggling, to pretend that everything is great and that they can handle it, if they're not. Because it's okay to not be able to handle it. None of us know what we're doing. Let's just talk about it and kind of make it okay. I think as leaders as well, it's really important, especially to show our teams, that we don't know everything. It's okay to say, I actually don't know the answer. I don't have a solution, but I trust that with you guys as a team, we're going to work this through and we're going to work this out. I think that's really important. You don't want to be the person who everyone just goes, okay, we'll follow you, tell us what the solution is. You're not always going to have all of the ideas. So I think that's really, really important in authenticity. Just being honest and saying, this is one of my blind spots. I actually don't understand, or I don't know, or I'm not the expert in this. Because again, if you can talk about that stuff, it's okay for your team to talk about that stuff. If you can put your hand up and go, do you know what? I made a mistake. I really shouldn't have done that in this way. If I'd have had that conversation or expressed it or communicated it in this way, this would have been much better, or I've really stuffed that up. How can I now fix it? Can you guys help me? There's nothing more authentic than a leader who's vulnerable in that way. Again, it builds that bond of trust, which I think is really important as a leader. So I think if you can get to that place as a leader, you're going to get your team working in that way as well. If you miss a deadline or you stuff something up, be honest about it. People will have so much more respect for you as a leader. And also your team will then start being more honest, because you are their role model. So they are going to follow what you do. So it's really, really important that this stuff actually does happen in the workplace, because how can you be effective if people aren't being honest around you and telling you, I've missed a deadline? You don't want to find out about it, 3 months later when it's too late. Let's find out about it when you can do something about it. There is obviously a bit of a caveat to that, because there is honesty and then there's, sharing everything, and it's really uncomfortable for everybody. So I think you really have to think about what's actually appropriate. Let's not be honest and say things like, oh, you've had your hair cut, it looks awful. Let's make it about work, and let's be respectful of people. But I think if we can find that balance and strike that balance, this is where we can work really well on our authenticity. So if you're going to really start thinking about, yourself in the workplace, a good idea, just spend, an hour on this. Just sit yourself down at the weekend when you're not at work and just really think about the situations when you don't actually tell the truth, or you don't actually express your opinions. Where is that? Is it, when you're with your boss? Is it when you're with a certain co-worker? Is it all the time at work? Is it never? And sort of just start thinking through, who is it with and where does that actually happen? Then think about why. So why is it that you're not actually speaking up and saying what you really think? Is it because you don't want to offend someone? Is it because you're going to challenge someone's opinion? Is it because you don't want to look stupid? Or is it because you're afraid you actually don't want to disagree with this person? You think there might be some consequences? Then start thinking about, okay, so if I woke up tomorrow morning and I was completely authentic, what would be different about me? What would it be that I would say, or what would it be that I would act like, or what behavior, what is it that I'm going to be doing that's different if I'm being authentic, my authentic self? I dare you to be brave and be really courageous, and this is going to be tough, but just think of one person that you've wanted to say something to. You know, I'm not suggesting that you go into your boss and say, I absolutely hate you today. But, you know, just one thing or one creative idea, or, you know, something that someone does that you don't like, or, you know, just think of one thing that you've been wanting to say and be brave. Write it down, practice it. Don't apologize for it. You know, I'm not suggesting that you critique somebody, but don't apologize for what you think. It's really, it's actually quite eye-opening, and you feel quite amazing, and it's very powerful to be truthful. So just try it. You know, if you're not willing to try it in the workplace yet, maybe try it with a friend, or, you know, and be nice about it, but you certainly don't have to apologize for your ideas, but try it. See how you feel about it. I actually think it's phenomenal. It absolutely makes me feel awesome. But give it a go and see how you get on. So the key takeaways today: how to be authentic and what authentic people in the workplace look like. So firstly, very self-aware. They embrace who they are. And they acknowledge their weaknesses, and they acknowledge their blind spots, and they're not afraid of them. They're not afraid to speak of them. I also think that really authentic people are very passionate, they're very honest, and they're really happy to express their opinions, and, you know, they're happy to articulate them, they're happy to talk about them, and really passionate. You know, they just show who they really are. The other thing that I think is really important with authenticity, especially in leadership, is that they strive to get the job done, but they don't strive for that perfection. They realise that there isn't any such thing. None of us are going to ever be perfect, and it's okay to not be perfect. It's okay to have those blind spots. So I think that kind of links to it as well, not striving to be perfect all the time. I think truly authentic people also know how to manage those weaknesses and manage that fear, and they're really honest about those things, and they're able to work through them. And I also think truly authentic people are actually quite positive. You know, they look at the world and start, you know, thinking about, okay, how can I spin this? This is a negative situation. We're going into a crisis. You know, we don't have resources, or we don't have a timeline, whatever it may be. How can we make this work? How can we turn this into a positive? And they really, really try and look at the world in that way, rather than spiraling down into that negativity. Another thing that I think is really important with authentic leaders is they ask for second opinions. So they might kind of test an idea. They might have an idea and say, okay, what are your thoughts? You know, they might even change opinions because all of a sudden they've got some new information. They're not afraid of saying, oh, maybe my opinion, maybe I didn't have all the facts there. Maybe that's not correct. Maybe it's this, or maybe, you know, this adds a flavor to that. And it's okay to have those kinds of conversations and be real about it. Lastly, I think the thing that's really important with truly authentic leaders is they leave their mark. They leave a real legacy and, you know, real innovation and real respect for the next generation, because let's be honest, we're not all going to be around forever. And I think they're really respectful of, you know, what mark they are making on the future and the future generation. And lastly, I wanted to just read you a quote, which is actually from Steve Jobs, but I just think it's so cool, and it's all about authenticity. So this is what Mr. Jobs said: "Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. Don't be trapped by dogma, which is living with the results of other people's thinking. Don't let the noise of other people's opinions drown out your inner voice. And most important, have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. They somehow know what you truly want to become. Everything else is secondary." I absolutely love that. I think it's so cool, and it's so true. So hopefully I've encouraged you to follow your passions and your dreams and really start thinking about the authentic you and listening to your own inner voice. I'd love to hear how you all get on. So by all means, send me a message. Let me know how authenticity is working out for you guys. Have a great week, and I look forward to speaking to you again next week. Take care. Bye.